sit down with your sheriff and urge them to not collaborate with ICE in abducting and disappearing our neighbors and doing the bidding of our lawless president who so desperately wants to be a king. So thanks again for joining. Thanks for introducing yourselves in the chat. Please keep sharing. For those of you that just joined again, I'm Rio Taswell. I've been helping to manage the Disappeared in America campaign, which is an effort that the Not Above the Law Coalition has been organizing for the last few months to help highlight and raise awareness about the stories and impacts of those who have been deported, disappeared, and detained without due process by the Trump administration. Some of you on this call perhaps were a part of the big photo petition day of action we did a few weeks ago, where individuals in over 100 towns and cities across the country gathered in public places with photos of some of those individuals who have been detained, deported, and disappeared without due process, and took pictures with members of their community in front of courthouses and other public places, shared them across social media. There's thousands of incredible photos. If you search hashtag disappeared in America, you can see some of that content. And now we've been, in the past few weeks, really working to encourage people to meet with their sheriffs. And we'll be getting into the weeds of that in terms of why that's important, how that can make a difference. But in short, the Trump administration doesn't have the capacity to carry out the massive deportation agenda that the president wants by themselves. So they're trying to deputize local sheriffs. And given that many sheriffs are elected by the people, we have room to push them and encourage them to not comply. So I just want to share that this training tonight is a collaboration of multiple organizations. I am really proud to work directly with a couple of them. The first being the Workers Circle. We have a couple of my team members are on with us tonight. The Workers Circle is a national secular Jewish social justice organization that was founded 125 years ago, if you can believe it, by Eastern European immigrants who were fleeing persecutions and seeking democratic freedoms, um, and found that here in the United States, and have been working to fight back against oppression in its many forms and fascism in its many forms ever since then. I'm also here representing Public Citizen, another core partner in this effort, which is a national nonprofit founded in 1971 as a consumer advocacy organization that champions the public interest in the halls of power. We work to defend democracy, resist corporate power, and fight to ensure that the government works for the people, not big corporations. And so the Workers' Circle and Public Citizen are so proud to be partnering with Sheriff Accountability Action, who will be actually leading the training tonight, along with many co-sponsors, including the Florida Immigrant Coalition, American Friends Service Committee, Catholic Legal Immigration Network, El Paso County Public Defender's Office, Faithful America, Haitian Bridge Alliance, Interfaith Coalition on Immigration, Iowa Migrant Movement for Justice, New Mexico Dream Team organizers, People Power United, and Texas Immigration Law Council. So quite a mouthful, quite an incredible group of groups that have been collaborating on this Talk to Your Sheriff effort. And, why are we here? I think we all know why this is such an important issue. We've been watching on TV and on social media as immigrants, or frankly, people who are being racially profiled as potentially being immigrants now, have been abducted by masked, plainclothes ICE agents, oftentimes without warrants, while they're at work, while they're worshiping, or while they're, just walking the dog or walking with their kids at the grocery store, and then being held indefinitely in the deplorable conditions in detention centers, or even shipped overseas to torture-filled, and human rights abuse-filled prisons overseas. This is just obviously completely unacceptable. It's un-American, and it's a dangerous attack on the fundamental rights of all Americans, regardless of your citizenship status. And Donald Trump came into office promising the largest deportation in history. He said an arbitrary number of 3,000 quote unquote criminals a day to be deported. This is over 1 million a year. And so far, over 70% of those that have been arrested by ICE have committed no crimes. It's clear, increasingly clear by the day, that they're not targeting criminals. They're indiscriminately targeting communities of color in particular, and just picking people off the street. And this is all to meet an arbitrary number that they set. And they're targeting vulnerable people, many of them who are here legally, They're canceling visas, green cards, revoking refugee status, and they're just deporting people that have the audacity to work jobs, pay taxes. They're contributing to our economy, to our communities, and doing the difficult work in so many industries, whether it's agriculture and factories, hospitality, and so much more. And Trump's anti-immigrant agenda and ICE disappearances are traumatizing people and tearing families and communities apart. It is immoral, it is unconstitutional, it is cruel, and we all must do our part to end it. So we are here tonight to do something about it. And so now I'm really excited to pass it over to Tracy Quarter from the Sheriff Accountability Action Organization, who will get our training underway. And Tracy, it's, over to you.
Hello, everyone. As it was stated, my name is Tracy Quarter with Sheriff Accountability Action. Am really just honored to be with y'all tonight. About 300 people, and I think it's because we all feel the urgency of what's been going on, and I just want to commend you all for showing up, try to figure out how we can push back together. Am I sharing the presentation or is someone else going to share the
I
presentation?
can share it, Tracy. I
Thank
have
you
it
so
queued
much.
up for you.
Excellent. So I want to talk to you about several things. I want to talk to you about like what is actually going on and kind of lay some of that out. I think we know it. I think that we've seen it, but to have it all in front of us, I think makes it easier for us to know what we're fighting. And then I want to talk about like what are the demands we can make, and then we'll finally go into how you can actually set up those meetings with your sheriff. Next slide. So, in the chat, will you please share what motivates you personally to stand up against the disappearances and kidnappings in our community in this moment? So, would love for folks. I know people are already have the chat going. Again, it's over 300 of us in here tonight. So, would love to hear folks drop in the chat. The first thing I saw was it's morally wrong. And I know that's right. That's exactly why so many of us show up. It this impacts our community, our neighbors, the people that we love, and the people that we don't know. And either way, it's morally reprehensible that this is happening. And there are steps we can be taking to stop it. Other things people are saying are it's against the law, care for the vulnerable. I'm seeing the unfairness makes me mad. I also know people who have been targeted. So many of us know people who have been targeted, absolutely. Because I have a soul, to be honest, and injustice makes me sick. Kellen, we are in the same boat. I feel the exact same way. And I really encourage other folks to look at what is being dropped in the chat so that you know that you're not alone. So many people are here for some of the same reasons that you are, for different reasons, but all of these reasons are valid as we continue to push back against this administration. Next slide. So, what are we facing? We are facing mass deportations. And sometimes that just feels like something we say, but it doesn't actually like speak to how horrific this has been. People are going to court and being deported. People are going to graduations and getting caught up at ICE checkpoints, work site, traffic stops. All of this is happening. And as we all said, like this was a promise around criminalization and safety, and it's done the exact opposite. We are all less safe because this is happening. Um, we are also looking at a loss of legal status from TPS holders, asylum, etc. And we know that this is not about some rule of law. This is about a xenophobic agenda, right? And so we can tell that from the way it's being executed. Folks are revoking student visas and green cards. There's attack on birthright citizenship. We've heard over and over, oh, that can't happen, that won't happen. And we are seeing over and over them setting up the roadmap for that to happen. Threats to denaturalize political opponents. If you don't agree with the folks in charge, people are threatening to remove you from this country and even send you to places that you've never been. Travel bans, we've seen that before. And then an all around expanding of the deportation machine beyond ICE. And that's why we talk about sheriffs, because this deportation machine cannot function without local authorities. Next slide. Sheriffs play a central role, and we'll talk about all of that, right? They can share information with ICE, housing and transporting folks, funneling about 50% of deportations through their jail, and that includes detainer requests, and then acting as federal enforcement through 287G agreements. We will talk and we will dig a little bit more into what 287G agreements are and how that's key to some of the asks that we're going to be making. Next slide. So the three types of 380 or 287G agreements that we can discuss is the warrant service office model. It trains, certifies, and authorizes state and local law enforcement to execute ICE warrants. So people who have come in to do other jobs are now being deputized and trained to do this warrant service model. This jail enforcement model, which gives power to deputize officers to interrogate and detain. And it's really important to name that this is done without due process. This is done under suspicion, and anybody can be suspicious. We know that when things are arbitrary and fly by night, it ends up impacting our folks the worst. It ends up being racist and rooted in white supremacy, and that's what we're seeing every day. And then the task force model, deputizing officers to question and arrest alleged non-citizens. And I want to talk about that because I think that it's really important, heavy on the alleged. There have been folks, I'm from Milwaukee. There was a Puerto Rican family that was arrested and detained and having to like prove their citizenship, right? This is like how it does not need to be anything but I suspected this is what was going on. And we are also saying that folks are being deputized, normal everyday citizens are being deputized, which is why you may have seen people picked up with folks wearing masks or hoods because these folks are being deputized through this program. Um, there are really important resources. We will make sure that you have this, but this, for example, is a national map that was updated June 5th, and it really like lets us know where these agreements are happening. I saw someone say they were from Florida. If you look, a lot of red in Florida because it was passed at the state level. So this helps us stay informed. It's not completely up to date, but it is being populated and and they're updating it in real time. But it lets us know what kind of agreement exists. So it'll say new under Trump or reinstated or terminated. We'll know that, and that helps us know what to ask for. Next slide. Many sheriffs collaborate with and act as local extensions of the immigration authorities. So we talked about this, right? Even without that 287G agreement that we talked about, so folks will have on their websites, or you can call your sheriff and even ask if they have that 287G agreement. But even without that, we know that folks may still cooperate with ICE by honoring immigration detainer requests. That's including holding folks in jail for up to 24 or 48 hours after release date so ICE can pick them up, and then notifying ICE before a person is released. This is a voluntary program. So, like, if you come from a state like Florida, for example, that has like these laws that say this has to happen at the state level, there are voluntary pieces of it that they are signing up for that do not have to do, right? And that doesn't get on record the way 287G agreements do. Folks know that we are sharpening our skills, just like you're here at this training, other folks all over the country are being trained. So we know what to ask for. So it's easy for a sheriff to say, oh no, I don't have a 287G agreement, but that does not mean there is not some sort of cooperation happening. And this is one of those things. Next slide. Um, Again, we have the notification policy. Sheriffs may have a policy to notify ICE when they make routine traffic stops. They might, and even on the slide, it says to make matters worse, ICE dumped 700,000 of their administrative warrants into the law enforcement database called NCIC. Now, if you really think about this, I'm sure that we all have different views of police or policing and how that works. But the reality is, sheriffs have been brought on to do one thing, and they now have to do this other thing. And so, folks have been elected, folks are paying taxes to like have this thing done, this like vision of safety, whether we agree with it or not. And what we're seeing is that that's not able to happen because those warrants are getting dumped in, and that's taking up the time of deputies. And I want you to stick a pin in that because that's really, really important for when we talk to sheriffs and we ask them and we try to compel them to see things our way. So, next slide. Again, jail access. This is even without a 287G agreement. They can interview individuals, conduct background checks, and issue detainer or administrative warrants. And this is all happening through county jails with or without a 287G agreement. Next slide. And then information sharing. We know that surveillance is happening. We're seeing it even when you think about what's happening. Again, I don't mean to pick on Florida, but with like alligator Alcatraz, this is like a surveillance state, and it's spreading. So a federal program that shares fingerprint data throughout local bookings is happening, and then a national database accessed by ICE through partnerships with the DOJ and DHS. And again, if you think about it, we've already talked about how these arrests can be arbitrary. So people are getting into the system and then being tracked because of these warrants, because of this, these like agreements and information sharing. Next slide. So what can we demand? Obviously, we can demand INSTA 287G agreements. That is first and foremost. We can say, we want you to stop these 287G agreements. You all will have these slides. So if you're taking notes, like feel free to know that you can slow just a little bit because we're going to send these slides to you with these demands. But we could ask our sheriffs, in addition to stopping these 287G agreements, do not call ICE during routine traffic stops. This scares people. This is one of those things that even business owners are seeing will slow down business. There are rumors if ICE is in a neighborhood or ICE is in a business area, folks will be scared and just not go, and that's anyone, right? We can refuse to allow the space in local jails to be used. This is another key thing with sheriffs, especially with places where say, "Oh, we have jail overcrowding." Well, if we have jail overcrowding, then why are we also leasing beds out to ICE? This is a way that no matter how we feel about the system, we can be shining a light for sheriffs to understand that this does not make sense within the jurisdiction of what they have been asked to do. Again, refuse to accept civilian, one back. Refuse to accept civilian detainer request. Obviously, again, that's a voluntary request from ICE. So it is not part of the 287G agreement. So even if they have one of those, you can say, can you refuse that? And again, obviously, ending that agreement with ICE. Next slide. Um, Prohibit any voluntary information sharing and record sharing. Prohibit deputies and jail staff from asking individuals about their citizenship. Again, we know that there are places that have passed laws that have said you have to have these kind of agreements, you have to have this information sharing, but you should look at what the law says in your area. And if there isn't a law that specifically asks for that or specifically says that this has to be done, you should be going in there and asking for these very specific things to be done. Um, Again, refusing ICE access to jail without a warrant, advising non-citizens of their rights, and encouraging state sheriff associations to oppose federal immigration enforcement. We are always talking with sheriffs about what does it mean to stand up against this. Local officials and sheriffs have been threatened that funding will be cut, or they can lose their job, or they can be arrested if they are not cooperating with ICE. And so there are strength in numbers. So even if you have a sheriff that is friendly to this and you don't have this agreement, the ask for them and the question for them is, will you be an example? Will you stand up against this and support other sheriffs as they say no to these agreements? Next slide. So in the chat, I've talked, you've heard my voice. I want to know, do you know if the sheriff in your area cooperates with ICE? Do you know if there's a 287G agreement or other ways that your specific sheriff cooperates with ICE? If you'll drop it in the chat. Mm-hmm. We have folks, a lot of yeses, and a lot of folks who don't know. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's on us. We can look, you can do your Googles, you can ask, you can call up to your sheriff's office and ask. You can do all of that. That's how you will know about the cooperation with ICE. You could also ask other elected officials who may have friendly relationships within your area to also ask that sheriff to really see what's going on. I see someone who says in Chicago, no officially, and it went too fast for me. But I think that we are seeing again that even if there's not the official agreements, because the Trump administration is trying to spook people, there is some sort of collaboration. There's also this idea that people want it, and so we really do have to push back and show that this is actually not what we want in our communities. Next slide. So, wanted to make sure that as we talk about this, you know that there are sheriffs that are resisting. Multiple counties in North Carolina. In late 2024, there were sheriffs all over North Carolina who said they will no longer honor ICE detainers. That's because of our movement. That is because we have made the demands and they have answered. And so it makes a difference to have these meetings. It is important to have these meetings. This work is never a waste of time. This work actually does move policy and make change. Next slide. In Clark County, Georgia, and Athens, we have a sheriff. This is in the South who declared he will not honor ICE detainers unless they come with court-issued warrants. Even this is something that came as a demand of community. In a place like Georgia, it can be tough to stick up and stand up against the powers that be in the Trump administration. And because these demands are made, this sheriff did. Next slide. And then I see in the chat there's a question: is there a difference between a sheriff and the local police? In some areas there are. Most areas is different. If you live in a smaller area, that job might overlap. But I would just encourage you to Google it because you can Google who your police chief is, and you can Google who your sheriff is, and you can see if that's the same person. We also had a lot of news out of Iowa about Sheriff Joe Kennedy, declining a 287G agreement, citing limited jail capacity and local budget concerns. So when you meet with your sheriff, when you talk to your sheriff, you can also be asking them the same thing. Again, we have all been in here and we said, this is a moral issue for me. This is wrong. I am here for this reason. And that is correct. And we know when we talk to sheriffs and other people in charge, we have to think about what compels them. We can start from the moral issue, and we always should, but we can also talk about the fiscal issues and the issues around capacity for both their jails and their staff. Next slide. So how do I set up a meeting with the sheriff? Again, don't worry, we will make sure that you have this and you will be able to look at this and have it with you. I'm also going to drop in the chat and I'll make sure that you also have the agenda um, for this is the agenda, a sample agenda for a 1 hour meeting. Of course, you can play around with this. I just always like to have a basis for myself of saying, okay, this is like what it looks like or makes sense. and this is how I will change it. So this is just an agenda, like a sample agenda for a 1 hour meeting with your sheriff. So you want to visit your sheriff's website. Again, you can just search like Alameda County Sheriff's Office, for example. Look for the phone number, email address, or any other public information. There are some sheriff offices that have online contact forms or meeting request portals. So you want to look out for that. You also, if you do those online portals, may want to call the sheriff office and just remind them, hey, I filled this out, and let them know and put that extra pressure so that they know that you're watching that. Next slide. You want to prepare your requests. You want to let them know your name and affiliation, the purpose of the meeting, be specific but respectful. I want to be really clear that I am not a person who like cares about respectability by any means, but I also understand how to show up to a meeting, especially a meeting like this, in a way that makes people want to like have this conversation with you. Um, give them a brief summary of your concerns or the issues, the name and roles of anyone else who's attending. I suggest having like a smaller meeting, no more than about 5 or 6, and then suggest some dates or times where you are available. That way, it's not just in the ether, like, oh, I just want to meet with you. It's like, can we meet with you? Here are the days that we're available. And they're more likely to get someone to say, this works or this does not work. Next slide. Other tips, if you don't hear back within 5 to 7 days, follow up by the phone. If you're part of a group or coalition, make that clear. There's strength in numbers. So if you are a part of an org and you represent 1,000 people in the community, say that these people are coming to the meeting, or these are the people who want to come to the meeting, but we represent this set of the community, so that they know that you have people behind you. And if there's like a geographic barrier or a scheduling barrier, you can always request a virtual meeting. The other thing that I have done is seeing if there's a deputy sheriff or someone else in the office, if the sheriff has been resistant to meeting with us, and see if they will offer that out to us as well. Because a lot of times with these like sheriffs or anyone in elected office, they have someone else who they talk to a lot. And if you can get to that person and really sway them, that may help you sway up top. If they refuse to stall, or if they refuse to stall, again, request another meeting. You can also attend a public forum or town hall where the sheriff is present, or you can speak during public comment at a county board or budget meeting, because or figure out whoever is making these like county jail budgets or who signs off on the budget for the sheriff's office, and show up to those meetings and voice your concern. Those meetings are not really heavily attended. So if you bring a group of 20 up there, you're going to get some attention. Next meeting, or next slide. Um, does anyone, I'm sorry, Rio, do we have that report back, or am I handing it back to you?
We invited someone who has had a successful meeting with their sheriff, and it doesn't look like he was able to join. I know that he was coming back from a camping trip and said he might not have service. So unfortunately, I don't think we have him on, but we are hearing back from folks who have had successful meetings, and we will be sure to capture some of their feedback and stories and try to package it for folks so that you can hear firsthand from others who are
Great,
having these meetings. Yeah.
great. I will hand it back to you for you to show people about the toolkit.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tracy, for all of that really, really helpful information. Um, so I want to go ahead and walk through with all of you a toolkit that we've put together, many of the elements of which are things that Tracy already covered in her presentation, but we've pulled it all together here and created some resources and materials to provide a step-by-step guide to set up these meetings with your local sheriff. JJ has dropped the link to this toolkit in the chat, so you can go ahead and open it up and follow along as we walk through it together. But the first step that we encourage everyone to take, and you can go ahead and do that on the call tonight. We would love many of you to go ahead and take this step together this evening, and we can work on fleshing out the plan moving forward. But the first step is to go ahead and register your event on Mobilize. That does not commit you to anything. It is really just the first step towards organizing your meeting. It's totally okay if you don't have a date or a time yet. It is totally fine if you haven't reached out to your sheriff, you don't know how to contact your sheriff. You can do all of that. We'll provide you guidance for how to do all of that. But if you're interested in even taking this action, we encourage you to just go ahead and set it up your event on Mobilize. It allows us to coordinate with you and track who's setting up these meetings across the country. And if there's multiple people in the same city who are setting up meetings, I've seen a few people asking the chat whether you can get connected with others. If you go ahead and sign up on Mobilize and we see that 3 or 4 other people in your area are setting up meetings too, we can go ahead and potentially connect you all together. But we won't know who to connect until you sign up on Mobilize. So that's the first step. Please go ahead and do it. And then you can also encourage other people to join you using Mobilize. It makes it really easy to gather RSVPs. So whether it's just a handful of friends, or coworkers, or neighbors, or family members, or members of your synagogue or church, or uh, your golf buddies, whatever the case may be, anyone that's interested in potentially attending this meeting, you can just send them the Mobilize link. Makes it super easy to organize. Uh, One important point is that these are private Mobilize pages. For those of you that have been attending a lot of these big rallies like Hands Off and No Kings, you're probably very familiar with Mobilize at this point. Those Mobilize pages are very public and they're being promoted and racking up hundreds and thousands of RSVPs. This is not that. These are not public events. We're not asking you to send out email blasts to tons of people, and we're not going to be blasting it across the internet. These are private events. You can invite as many or as few people as you want. You can invite no one. You can do the meeting by yourself. Again, it's just helpful to have it on Mobilize so that we can track who's setting up meetings and communicate and coordinate with you all and support you along the way. So it's a private meeting. You don't need to worry about that. They're not going to be publicized. And so why Mobilize? I've already kind of touched on this. It helps us stay in touch. You can get RSVPs, and then vice versa. You can get in touch with us via Mobilize. It's a very simple interface to use, and my colleague JJ is going to walk through how to set up a Mobilize in just a few minutes. So yeah, first step in the toolkit, set up your Mobilize. Next, you got to find your sheriff's contact information. Shouldn't be too hard. Google will probably yield all the information you need. Just type in, your local county and sheriff's office, and you can guarantee that that information is readily available on their website. So you're looking for the phone number, email address, for the public information officer or the potentially a community liaison contact. Oftentimes these are elected officials, so you are their constituent, and you have a right to set up a meeting and to at least try to set up a meeting and to reach out. Sometimes there's online contact forms that you can fill out, or potentially some counties have meeting request portals. Again, you can find all of that on the website. And if none of that's there, there will be a phone number or an email address. So you can reach out that way. Do you want to go ahead and switch to the next slide? So those are the first couple steps. Mobilize, find the contact information. Next, you want to do the actual outreach. We've put together a sample email that you can use to craft your own request. It's linked directly in that toolkit, and you'll find it there. But very basic stuff, nothing too crazy. You want to start with your name and affiliation if you're reaching out as an individual. If you're affiliated with an organization, perhaps your local indivisible. I see lots of local indivisibles in the room, which is terrific. So you want to identify any affiliations you have, if you're part of a coalition, etc. If you're part of a church group, that's great to include. So any sort of identification in addition to your name can help carry a little bit more weight and potentially increase the chances that you'll get a meeting. But even if you're not affiliated with any group, if you're just meeting by yourself or trying to set up a meeting by yourself, by all means, that should be enough, and absolutely still worth reaching out. You want to be clear about what the purpose of the meeting is. You want to be specific, but not too long-winded. So you can just provide sort of a brief summary of the concern that you have, the issue. Of course, here we're talking about 287G agreements, and ICE deportations. We have sample language to kind of cover that, but you're of course welcome to include any other information or issues that might be of concern to you and your community. It's your meeting. You can bring up anything you want, but we do have some sample language for this particular issue that you can use, and some sample talking points on ways that ICE is being deputized in some cases to carry out the Trump immigration agenda. All that is in the toolkit. You also want to include the names and the roles of anyone else that is planning to attend, just for their awareness, and your availability. If you want to just go ahead and throw out some general dates and time frames in which you'd be interested in meeting, just to have a starting point with the scheduling. And as Tracy said, if you're not hearing back, it's good to follow up the first time within 5 to 7 days. If you start with an email, perhaps follow up over phone. If you've already called over the phone, left a message, call again. Maybe then try to send an email. And I would recommend following up multiple times. Organizing often involves being patient and being persistent, and I think follow up is almost always worth it. So don't be discouraged if you don't hear back. Keep following up, and chances are you will get a reply at some point. If you're far away geographically from your sheriff's office, you can always request a virtual meeting or a phone call. There's lots of ways to communicate and to meet, especially these days with the ease of online meetings. So that's always an option. You can request a meeting with the chief deputy or the jail administrator if the sheriff themselves aren't available, or if you're not getting an answer, you can pivot and ask for a meeting with the chief deputy or jail administrator. If none of that works, if you're being stonewalled, not getting any responses after weeks and weeks of following up, there's always other options. You can go to a public forum or town hall where the sheriff might be present, ask a question there. You can speak during a public comment section of a county meeting or a budget meeting. Oftentimes these types of events are open to the public and they do take questions. You can always show up, ask your question there. Whether or not the sheriff's actually present, you can go on record in terms of asking that question. So lots of ways to get your message out there. So once you've done your initial outreach to the sheriff's office, if you want to organize a group, that's encouraged. You can reach out to local faith allies. That can be a great place to look to partner with like-minded individuals and organizations that can perhaps appeal to the sheriff from a moral perspective to not comply. And we've had a lot of folks that have been partnering with their local congregations of faith on this effort. So if that's something that you're interested in, that you're plugged into, highly recommend that. But of course, not a requirement at all. You can also reach out to just local organizations, even local elected officials, members of the town council, etc. Anyone that could potentially be an ally in this, essentially, is who you want to think of for folks to invite. And we got some sample emails for reaching out to these different types of local allies, including local faith leaders and then community leaders or elected officials as well. So be sure to check all of that out. It's in the toolkit. And then finally, we want to hear how these meetings go. So we do have a report back form that is linked in the toolkit as well. We'd love for you to fill it out and let us know how your meeting went. And then if you want to go ahead and put August 11th on your calendar, we're going to be having a debrief call with folks who have had meetings or have at least tried to set up meetings. And we want to hear from you about how those have gone. It'll likely be a much smaller call. I don't expect that to be a webinar, so we're going to be encouraging folks to come off mute and share, discuss, ask questions. So please RSVP for that. There's a link to RSVP for that in the toolkit as well. And look forward to hopefully having you there with us then on August 11th. Next slide, please. Yeah, so just recapping, in the toolkit, you'll find all these things. If you have questions about the process or any of the information that Tracy went over in her presentation, first of all, the presentation, as I think was mentioned, will be sent out in a recap email along with the recording of this training. But Tracy has graciously provided her email here, so you can shoot her an email. I believe she is available for office hours next week as well. I think we're going to do this 1 week from tonight, So that is Tuesday, July 29th. So you'll get a link to RSVP for those office hours, and that's a very informal, open um, format where you can just show up, ask your question. She'll be there to answer and discuss any concerns or issues that you're having. Um, Tracy, did we pick a time? I think we said 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. But again, all that information will be sent out to you in a follow-up email. So keep an eye out for that. And then, yeah, the report back form as mentioned in the debrief. And next slide, please. And I think I'm going to kick it to JJ now.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Rio. So yeah, I'm gonna launch this poll essentially asking whether you are able to meet, if you plan to meet with your sheriff. I'll go ahead and launch that right now. And then for those who say yes or maybe, someone from our team will be reaching out to you and helping you along that process. We have those resources in the toolkit that we're ready to share with you, ready to brainstorm how you want to set up that agenda, who you want to be inviting. Right now, a lot of our hosts are in that stage of recruiting faith leaders within their community. And I already see someone said in the chat they've already met multiple times. We have had other hosts who have already been on their second, ready for their third meeting. And a lot of what I've been hearing so far is that they have had some, some sort of success of having a productive conversation with these sheriffs and being able to make these demands explicit. So really, really encouraging to hear that. And again, it's all in the agenda, and this is just a really key moment for people to, demand that their sheriff stands up for immigrants in their communities, right? So I think I'm not sure if I can end the poll, but it'll end at some point, and we'll have the information. Okay, there we go. So that's incredible. So it looks like we have over 100 people saying yes or maybe, which is going to be great for us to reach out to, continue giving you that support, and then just following along, checking up to see, if the sheriff has reached back out to you, if you've had a meeting on the books. We'll be there every step of the way. And I know some people, they might be having a bit of a difficulty, but that makes them even more encouraged to really make sure that their sheriff is accountable and they're ready to show up. So really excited to see that response from everyone. And I think I can go ahead and share my screen unless there's one more slide. There might be one more. Yeah, so now I'll jump into how to set up your RSVP page on Mobilize. I saw in the chat some people have already done it during this call, which is so heartening to see. And I'll just walk through it one more time so you can know all of the ins and outs for how to fill out this page. All right. Yeah, I'll replace the current share. Okay, so here you can see my screen. This is what it looks like when you click that link to create your own Mobilize event RSVP page. So you can see the description here, everything that we've shared so far, and the toolkit is handy right here in case you need to check it out one more time just to make sure you're filling it out properly. And then of course we have an email here that you can reach out to. So essentially you can leave this event title the same unless you want to add perhaps your county to make it more specific. Not much of this really needs to be altered. It's just basic explanation of what we're expecting these meetings to look like. Visibility, as Rio mentioned, we want these to be private. This isn't one of those public rally events where we're trying to populate a map. We're wanting a deliberate set of people together in these meetings. Like we've mentioned earlier, hopefully community leaders, union leaders, faith leaders, relevant stakeholders that can really pressure the sheriff to adhere to our demands. And then you can have it in person. Maybe you'll find out it's better if it's virtual. You'll be able to go back into the back end and change that once the event has been approved on our side. And for those who might not be sure where the event location will be, you can just put in a placeholder, even just the city. And then same thing for the date and time. The deadline that we have is August 11th, since that's the debrief call. So we are asking people to make the placeholder at least before then, and then of course to aim to have these meetings done before that August 11th date. And then of course you'll want to enter in your own contact phone number, and this should really stay the same. The rest of this, you don't really need to alter much. If there is any accessibility concerns, I'm sure you should be able to have that conversation individually with whoever you're recruiting. And then if there is someone else working with you to recruit for this event, you can add them as a co-host. And then that's where you'll add their name, first name, last name, email, and then they will also be able to access the back end of this Mobilize for you. And you can have multiple people that are able to do this. And then of course, last but not least, you'll want to enter in your first name, last name, and then once you click host this event, if you haven't organized with us using Mobilize, you will see an email come in through your inbox asking you to verify your email. That is key because if you don't verify your email, we're actually not able to approve your event on our end. It gets kind of stuck in this purgatory. So right after you click host this event, make sure you have verified your email, and then we should approve your event within 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours, one business day at least. And then that's really the whole process. And I think I'll
Amazing.
pass it, back over to Rio.
Thank you so much, JJ. And very excited that our featured speaker was able to make it. Grayson Lookner is also a representative in the Maine State Legislature, and he is also one of our participants in the Talk to Your Sheriff campaign. And my understanding is that you've been able to actually set up and have your meeting with your local sheriff. We'd love to hear from you how that went, the process that you went through to have that meeting, how you feel about it, any takeaways for all of the hundreds of folks who are on right now who are in the process of looking to do the same thing.
For sure. Yeah, thanks for having me, and I apologize for being late. So our group, No Ice for Me, which is the abbreviation for Maine. So we came up with a funny pun, No Ice for Me. So we had actually started organizing on this immediately after Trump's inauguration. And we were trying to determine like the appropriate the best place to like exert pressure in the state and how we could have some effect nationally. And in Maine, county government is very weak, and they don't get the only thing they have purview over is the jail. So the sheriff in the jail, essentially. So there's an elected body in Cumberland County, Maine, which is where I live, that has oversight over the jail and over the county, or excuse me, over the sheriff. And so our strategy, we thought, because they get very little attention, usually public pressure on anything, was to go to the county commission and start pressuring them to drop the contract with ICE. So we've had a lot of success with doing that. We've had hundreds of people show up at these county commission meetings, which typically nobody shows up to at all. We've been circulating a petition and getting, thousands of people to sign up for our contact, our email blasts and so forth. And so yesterday, unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend, but was the most recent Cumberland County Commissioner meeting, in which they actually moved us to a new location because there's been so much public pressure and so many people have been showing up to these meetings to demand that Cumberland County drop the contract with ICE, that they had to move to a new location. So anyway, through these public meetings at the Cumberland County Commissioners meetings is where we requested that the commissioners and the sheriff meet with us. So that's what we did. So we had 5 of us, including, people from directly affected communities, people who are, from different demographics than I am, who are more directly affected. And we had legal experts and academics, and especially a lot of teachers in Portland who are terrified, who are seeing their students just terrified to show up to school because they don't want to get deported, and they think that ICE is going to come get them. So we had to sit down with the sheriff and a couple of Cumberland County commissioners, and the sheriff really spewed a lot of like what you would expect, some pretty overtly racist stuff, some pretty flat out like lies. And so that wasn't a particularly effective thing, but what we did get was a lot of sympathy from the Cumberland County commissioners who are starting to see things our way. So we haven't had them. We're demanding that they take it to a vote, that the Cumberland County Commission takes it to a vote. And we're hoping that's going to happen soon. But legally, there's nothing preventing Cumberland County from not. That's sort of like the argument that the sheriff is making now, that legally he's obligated to take these ICE detainees. He's not. The real issue is that the county's actually getting millions of dollars from the federal government to keep these ICE detainees, to operate as a cog in the deportation machine. So that's what they're not saying, but that's sort of like the context. So that's what we're up against. I mean, there's like been a huge mobilization, and we're still fighting, and there's talk now of like starting to run candidates against these county commissioners or against the sheriff, and going to like more direct action type things. So stay tuned.
That's great. Thank you so much, Grayson, Representative Lookner, for sharing your experience there in Maine. Incredibly valuable just to hear firsthand how that went and some of the challenges. But the inherent value in having those meetings and having that incredible group there with you, that sounds really, really powerful. So we've gotten a ton of questions. I'm not sure if we still have Tracy on with us. I see Amber from Sheriff Accountability Action is on. But I don't know, Amber, if you're interested or if you're comfortable trying to maybe field a few questions, I can try to pull from the chat. Either way, we are.
Yeah, and sorry, I was moving around, so I was off camera. But is the Q&A where you were pulling from, or just like the chat itself? I saw some Q&A questions as well.
If there's any in the Q&A that you want to jump in and answer, that's great. We've also been pulling some questions too.
Oh, hi, Rio. I've been pulling some questions from the chat in the Q&A. I'm Francesca on staff with the Worker Circle. Would you like me to read out a few of the questions that have been coming up a lot?
That would be amazing.
Yeah, and also I know that I don't know if we talked about this at the beginning before I had to come on late, but I know we're creating like an FAQ for the ongoing questions of these sessions. So even if we can't answer today, we can definitely get that FAQ out in the next few weeks, and y'all can get those questions answered there as well. But yeah, go ahead, Francesca.
Wonderful. Well, just to address the question, we got a lot. This presentation is being recorded. There's actually a recording of a previous training that is on the Worker Circle Talk to Your Sheriff website. This will all be sent out to you after the fact. So please don't worry if I know this is moving fast paced, but you will get all this information and all the links after the call. A big question a lot of people had is there a difference between sheriff and local police? And just sort of a question of if your sheriff is not responsive, is there a case of going to speak to other officials in the police department? Is that something people should do? That was one question.
So there is a difference. I know Tracy's mentioned this briefly earlier. There is a difference between sheriffs and police. Sheriffs, are usually county law enforcement. They also are controllers of jails, whereas police do more patrolling, and police don't control jails. Sheriffs, deputies, sheriffs, and those they control jails. So it's a little different in terms of the way that they have information in terms of working with immigration enforcement. And so I would say the similarities in policing and sheriffs is that they both can work with. I know that there have been like task force agreements with police that have been used for police to work as federal enforcement on the ground, and sheriffs have 287G agreements that work more with in terms of like the jail detaining, sharing information, that kind of thing. But sheriffs are elected officials, and they do have a lot more power usually than police because they control the jails, and they also have, like I said, like the information in terms of the way that they detain and are able to then share the information with ICE. That's probably the biggest difference. And then sheriffs just have a lot more powers in like county areas that police don't have, like evictions, and they can sign and determine like gun law, kind of gun regulations, things like that. And so yes and no. But in terms of like this specific issue in terms of immigration, sheriffs are going to be acting with a lot more power and have a lot more discretion in the way that they work with ICE.
Thank you. Another question that came up a lot was what people should do if they're in a state with no agreements, or perhaps they're in a sanctuary city or a state with more sanctuary type policies in place. People were just asking if there is a strategy that you all would recommend. Should we still meet with our sheriffs? And also, is there any way to find out whether your sheriffs are still collaborating with ICE, even if there's not an official agreement? So what to do if you're already in a state with no agreement, and can you find out if collaboration is still happening?
Yeah, I would say you can, and that's definitely going to be through local organizing, through folks who actually understand like the systems and the ways that those kinds of information or those kinds of agreements are happening. That's like under the radar and not like any kind of official like format. So for sure you can. I would say like talk to folks who are doing immigration rights stuff in your communities, and find who's like organizing around that. As far as sanctuary policies go, even with sanctuary policies for different like counties or cities or states, all of that, ICE can still come in and they can still detain, they can still keep people in the detention centers regardless of those policies. And so because of that, yes, there's a lot you can still be doing in terms of how you all organize around, like specifically around federal enforcement that comes in, right? What are the like the organizing network that's happening there? I see, Grayson, I see you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Thank you, Amber. In Maine, in Cumberland County, we discovered our sheriff says he doesn't cooperate with ICE. He doesn't do the 587 or the G agreement. I don't know if I have the number right. But what we discovered was that there were 60 to 80, anywhere between 60 and 80 ICE detainees in the jail on any given night, and they're sort of just getting cycled through. And how we discovered that is in our county, there's a publicly searchable. You can kind of see who's in the county jail, and you can see the reasons that they're there. So other counties may have a similar tool where you can go to the county jail's website and see who's there and for what reason. And so we were able to determine that there were a significant number of detainees in the jail who were ICE holds.
Thank you. We've got a lot of questions still. I know we're running short on time, but I was trying to think of which ones might have put a lot of people were just asking, this might be more a question for Rio, about how they can get connected to other people in their community who plan to meet with their sheriff, or if you have any other tips for finding like-minded people, either on this call or beyond, who you can connect with to make this meeting happen.
Sure. Well, yeah, first would encourage folks just to use the toolkit and do outreach to folks in your networks and encourage them to come along with you and have these meetings. Second, if you are interested in getting connected with other people that have already expressed interest by way of one of these trainings that we've had, again, I would really encourage you to just go ahead and register on Mobilize, and then we'll see that that you're interested in setting up a meeting. Again, registering on Mobilize doesn't set up the meeting. It just shows that you're interested in setting up a meeting and allows us to communicate with you and vice versa. And so if we see, if like 5 people from Phoenix, Arizona are saying that they're interested in setting up a meeting, we can proactively reach out to you and put you all in touch together. But Mobilize really is the best platform for us to do that coordination. So please if you're interested at all, even if you know you don't want to do it by yourself and you want to get connected with others and you're not sure if others in your community are doing it, we won't know that unless you go ahead and register on Mobilize, and we can take it from there. That said, we're encouraging people to set up as many meetings as possible. So even if there are multiple people meeting with the same sheriff, that's great. But we also can provide people the opportunity to connect and meet in person, or meet together if that's a preference. So either way, but yeah, please do register on Mobilize, and we can coordinate with you. And friend, maybe we take like another 2 or 3. I want to be respectful of people's time.
Yeah.
But it's great we have so many questions.
Sure. I know I'm seeing lots of questions in the chat and in the Q&A function. So if we don't get to all of these tonight, there will be, I guess a few people asked about office hours. There'll be office hours that we'll send out information about in our follow-up email, correct?
Yes. So we will have Tracy at Sheriff Accountability Action has graciously offered to have another round of office hours. They'll be next Tuesday, so 1 week from tonight. And you'll be able to register via a Zoom link that will be sent in the recap email following this call, along with this recording, the slide deck that Tracy went over, the toolkit that we've been talking about and put the link to in the chat, and then the registration for those office hours, which I believe will be 7 p.m. Eastern next Tuesday, July 29th.
Great. And there was maybe one more question for Amber and Tracy and Grayson. There were a lot of questions about the incentives and cases where like in Maine, states are receiving money for collaborating with ICE, and how can people approach talking to their sheriffs about really standing up for justice and for their fellow citizens or for their fellow community members, by not cooperating with ICE, even if there might be state money on the line, things like that.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Go ahead, Grayson.
Well, the thing I would say is it's been a challenging line for us to walk, because we're very dedicated to the idea of decarceration and reducing the need for, at least our group is very dedicated to those principles, and reducing the need for coercive law enforcement to produce public safety, because we reject the idea that public safety is just about police and prisons. It's really about all the things that keep communities safe, and not to get into that tangent. But counties do provide a lot of services besides the sheriff and the jail. So I think there's a conversation to be had about like how we support counties without necessarily supporting jails, and getting them, like the counties, the funding they need to like do public health or whatever other services that counties are providing. So there's a way that we could get states, and there's a huge discussion right now in Maine after the big bad bill's passage about how we're going to fund all our state services, because like so much is getting cut right now. So this is a moment for us to like think big picture, and we don't want to be complicit with a mass deportation program that we see as, extremely immoral. So our goal and what we need to do is just to like reframe public safety and get funding for counties in a way that's not, so that like they're not furthering this mass deportation effort. So I think there's a way for us to do that. It's just it's been challenging for us to talk about like, oh well, we want to fund counties, we don't necessarily want to fund jails.
Amber, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to to some of the end of what Grayson said, like, what is true public safety, and how are we like really furthering that in the ways that we understand like how we use our money. And I think that if we are talking about folks who are, sheriffs are elected, and we're talking about their constituents and folks that vote for them, and even folks that don't, like, right, folks that don't have voting power, but they are a part of the community that they're keeping safe. That if that money is not furthering that, and that is like, causing more harm versus harm reduction, and I think that is a a good lever or way to like kind of like put that in front of the sheriff and say, this is actually not keeping, this is not a part of the public safety line item budget that you are supposed to be paid for.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. So we've gotten just dozens of really terrific questions this evening, and we don't have time to answer them all. But as we mentioned, we are putting together an FAQ document, frequently asked questions, and consulting with a number of immigration lawyers and others with vast amounts of expertise in this space. We've had a couple of these calls now, and we've gotten quite a few questions that we are working with experts to get answers to. So we will work to get that out to you all. Maybe not right away. We want to make sure we get the answers right, but we will send that FAQ out as soon as we have all of the answers that we're looking for. So if your question wasn't answered tonight, we are working on it. Before we close, I want to share that we've already had 12 people sign up in the last hour during this call. I want to shout a few of you out. Peter Nesbitt from Boone, North Carolina signed up. Thank you, Peter. Anthony Caruso from Dundalk, Maryland signed up, which is fantastic. Kathleen Baldoni from Bowling Green, Ohio. Florence Johnson from Tucson, Arizona. Amanda Bowers from Palm Beach County, Florida. Valerie Laidlin, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, from Newark, New Jersey. Debbie Mondale from Lakeland, Florida. Lynn Lizzo from Central Islip, New York. Julie Kent from Orlando, Florida. Jill Sheridan from Jupiter, Florida. Diane Berry from Oriskany, New York. And Chris Hornung from Wausau, Wisconsin, all signed up during this call. Thank you so much. And looking forward to hopefully seeing many more of you on the back end of Mobilize, and we can continue the conversation there. Be sure to keep an eye out for the follow-up email, as we mentioned, that will include the recording again of this call, the toolkit, and all of the information that you need to move forward with setting up your meetings. So with that, I want to thank all of our speakers and thank all of you for taking the time out of your Tuesday evening to come and be a part of this really crucially important effort, which can provide some real concrete progress as we push back against this lawless administration and defend the constitutional rights of us all and our friends and neighbors who are being pulled off the streets every day. Thank you so much, and we'll be in touch. Appreciate y'all.